All right, welcome back. It's me, Hunter, and what I have for you today is a time lapse that I've been working on. It's about 7 minutes long, but I assure you, actually drawing this thing took me, it took me close to like 7 hours, perhaps in total. I remember spending two dedicated nights on this particular project, and so I wanted to share it with you guys and maybe do a little voiceover on top of it, and we'll see how it goes, right? So this particular character that I'm working on is a new character for a story that I'm writing, and I'm very hopeful for this particular story, and so I've been wanting to kind of solidify it, kind of in my mind, and think of a lot of different ideas to kind of toss in there. And one of the things you're going to notice about this time lapse, and I think it's very analogous to writing stories in general, is that it's going to look absolutely terrible 90% of the process. And, you might even argue with the final result. But I knew kind of like as I was working on, this drawing, I was like, it doesn't look right. It's just not good at all. Like, the eyes are off and the face is off and everything is off. And so, for me, it was really just a process. And you can see me, kind of right there, just shifting things around, right? And so, you have this idea, and you have to start somewhere, even if that somewhere is really really not good. You have to start with that sketch, you have to start with those, those proportions. And I really think that's been something that I've kind of learned on my writing journey so far, is that the old quote, you can't fix an empty page, has really, as a creative person, really kind of helped me out, because I've come to recognize that, right? I find myself much more a rewriter than an actual writer. And that's because the amount of time that I spend writing versus the amount of time that I spend trying to fix that train wreck of a writing, is much more disproportionate than you might think. And I do have a lot of ideas. I like to, write new and original things all the time, but it never goes to print, if you will, unless it's been rewritten about 20 times. And that was very much my experience with the Broken World, and kind of writing my first book, was that, I had something written down. Matter of fact, I had that something written down like 6 years ago, right? And it just, was a constant process of refinement. And that's something you kind of see in this picture creating process. And this picture is a good example of what it was like to write that book. I was writing it and I loved the idea, I love the world, I love the characters. But sometimes in storytelling, there are things that work. And I don't know how to explain that quite yet. This was a sentiment that Brandon Sanderson, writer of Mistborn and Way of Kings, he's talked about before, and he was kind of the first person that I think put it into words. When it comes to writing, there's a way in which things just work out. And it's ready when you kind of go back and you look at it and you say, hey, this just works. And I don't know why it just works, but like when I read through it, I'm like, hey, this is awesome. And it works out and I love it. And and so that's kind of how it is, when you're drawing. Sometimes you're like, oh man, this just doesn't work, or you're writing a new story and you're like, I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't work. And I think that's because, you still have to go through that refinement process, and you just have to keep working on it. Change up a little bit here and there, maybe take a break from the project, see how it goes. And that's actually what happened here. You kind of see it in time lapse form. But I would draw for like 3 hours, and then I would stop for a little bit, eat some pizza, think about it, come back and be like, oh no, it looks like crap, I've got to fix it. And so that whole process is kind of what leads to, the very end result, but you don't really see it until you get there. And so you really just have to trust that process and trust that, your original idea is worth something, but maybe not in the form that it is, right? If you go out and mine lithium, it's not going to do you any good. But But once you kind of refine it and you go through that process, all of a sudden everybody in the world wants it, right? To power their Teslas and iPhones and and things like that. But it takes a long time to get from, an ore into a refined metal that's, actually usable. So just keep that in mind when you're doing creative projects, to trust the process. And just because something isn't working doesn't mean that it can't work. And of course, that doesn't mean that you need to, stick in there with, sometimes you have a bad idea, right? Sometimes you have an idea that may not work. Sometimes, when you combine different ideas, which is ultimately what you have to do with the story, sometimes those ideas don't mesh very well. And it might be that you have to take your characters and put them in a different setting, or put them in a different story type of structure, and and see how it goes. Like, play around with the idea, continue to refine. Don't get trapped in your original intention, if you will. But believe in the idea, believe in the possibility that something can come from that. And eventually you can see now already it's looking so much better, right? And it's absolutely amazing to look at where it was 7 minutes ago, and then see where it is now. And I think this is one of the better pictures that I've done. So thank you guys for watching. I really want to do some more of these time lapses and kind of talk throughout them. So thank you very much for being here. See you guys later.